What happens when a family vacation turns into a nightmare? Join us as we uncover the deadly secrets hidden beneath the idyllic surface of a tropical paradise. The sun hung high over the turquoise waters of a remote island, casting a golden glow over the pristine beaches. Lush palm trees swayed gently in the breeze, and the scent of salt water filled the air. It was everything they had dreamed of, a paradise. A dream come true, or so it seemed. The Carter family had been planning this vacation for months. A break from their hectic lives, a chance to reconnect and enjoy each other's company. David and Linda Carter, both successful professionals, had worked hard to provide a life of comfort for their two children, Sophia, a bright 16-year-old, and Jake, their 10-year-old son, whose infectious laughter seemed to fill every room he entered. Their journey had begun like any other family vacation: excitement, joy, and a shared anticipation of what was to come. But from the moment they arrived on the island, something felt off. Sophia, normally the happiest of the bunch, couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that settled in her chest. It wasn't the place. This was paradise, after all. No, it was something deeper. A strange encounter with a local fisherman on the first day left her with a sense of foreboding. His dark eyes lingered too long, his words a cryptic warning: "Don't stay out too late, or you'll see the island's true face." The phrase haunted her, gnawing at her mind every time she glanced at the setting sun, her thoughts clouded with unease. Jake, the younger of the two, had no such worries. To him, the island was a playground. Every moment was an adventure, and each wave crashing on the shore felt like a new mystery waiting to be unraveled. But even his youthful joy couldn't hide the growing tension among the adults. Linda and David, though outwardly the perfect couple, shared a strange silence between them. It wasn't the usual calm of a long-term marriage. It was something different. Their smiles were tight, their eyes avoiding each other when they thought no one was looking. They fought quietly, with words barely spoken but heavy with meaning. The cracks in their relationship, buried under years of routine and complacency, were starting to show. That first night, after a family dinner on the beach, they decided to take a moonlit walk along the shoreline. The air was thick with humidity, and the only sounds were the crash of waves and the soft murmur of distant voices from other vacationers. But then the unthinkable happened. Jake, always the carefree child, ran ahead, laughing as he raced towards a small outcrop of rocks at the far end of the beach. David called after him, his voice tinged with concern. And then, in the blink of an eye, Jake vanished. The panic that set in was immediate. The family split up, calling Jake's name, their voices rising in desperation. Sophia was the first to spot him, or rather, what was left of him. Jake's body lay at the foot of the rocks, a strange mark on his neck, dark and swollen, like a bruise but with an unnatural texture. He wasn't breathing. David rushed to his son, cradling his limp body in his arms, the horror of what he saw sinking in. Sophia's mind raced. It didn't make sense. Jake had just been running, laughing a moment ago, and now he was gone. The police were called, but their response was sluggish. The island was remote, and the nearest town was hours away. The locals were of little help, offering only vague condolences and warnings that made the Carters feel like outsiders in their own grief. The autopsy revealed no clear cause of death, no broken bones, no external injuries, just that strange mark on Jake's neck. The doctors could offer no answers, leaving the family to grapple with a mystery that deepened with each passing day. As the family retreated into their hotel room, trying to process what had happened, the tension reached a boiling point. Linda snapped at David, accusing him of not protecting Jake, of letting him run off alone. David, defensive, fired back that they all had failed to keep the family together. Sophia, caught in the middle, couldn't understand it. Her parents had always been her rock, but now they seemed more like strangers. The cracks that had been hidden beneath the surface of their seemingly perfect family were now exposed, raw and bleeding. The guilt, the blame, the whispered arguments, all played out against the backdrop of an island paradise that had become a suffocating prison. It was then that Sophia found the first clue. While rummaging through their family's luggage, trying to find some sense of normalcy, she came across a small, old book hidden in the back of David's bag. It was a travel journal, but not one from their vacation. The entries were dated years ago, before she was even born. They spoke of another trip, a trip to a different island. The same island. A cold shiver ran down Sophia's spine as she read the final entry, written in David's familiar handwriting. "We've made a deal. It's the only way to keep the family safe. We have no choice. I'm sorry, but I'll never tell them the truth." The truth. What was he hiding? And why was it so important that it had to remain a secret for so long? The family had been keeping something so dark, so twisted, it had remained hidden for years. But now, the past was clawing its way back into the present, and the island, with its lush beauty and deceptive tranquility, seemed to be the perfect place for those secrets to resurface. As Sophia pressed her father for answers, David's demeanor changed. He became defensive, irritable. Linda, too, seemed to know more than she let on. But she refused to speak, her eyes darting nervously whenever Sophia asked about the journal or the island from their past. And then it came, like a bolt from the blue. Sophia overheard a conversation between her parents one night, their voices muffled behind the closed door. David, his voice low and trembling, said, "We shouldn't have come back. We promised we wouldn't come back. Now they'll never stop." Linda's voice, shaking with fear, replied, "We had no choice. We had to come. It's the only way to fix what we've done." Fix what they've done. What could they have possibly done on this island so terrible that it required years of silence, of deception? Sophia could feel the walls closing in on her. She needed to know the truth. The island held the answers, but also held something far darker, something she wasn't ready to face. The following day, the family decided to leave. But before they could make their escape, the island's secrets came crashing down. The local fisherman, the one who had warned Sophia on the first day, approached them once more, his eyes filled with an unsettling sorrow. He spoke of a curse that had haunted the island for generations, of a family that had betrayed its own blood, and of a reckoning that could never be undone. That night, Sophia found the courage to confront her parents. With trembling hands, she demanded the truth. And that's when they finally broke. David and Linda had come to the island years ago, not for a vacation, but for a much darker reason. The truth would shatter everything Sophia thought she knew. But just as they were about to tell her everything, a knock on the door interrupted their conversation. The police had arrived, but it wasn't to investigate Jake's death. They were here for something else. The story was far from over. And as the police officer stepped into the room, his face grave, he revealed the chilling truth that would change everything. Sophia's heart raced as the police officer stepped into the room. His eyes weren't filled with sympathy, but something darker, something unsettling. He scanned the room quickly before his gaze landed on her father, David, who looked paler than usual, his face lined with an unreadable expression. Linda, standing silently beside him, seemed to shrink back as if the officer's presence had the power to physically crush her. The officer cleared his throat, his voice low and deliberate. "We've been looking into a string of disappearances on this island," he said, his eyes flicking over to Sophia, then back to David. "Disappearances tied to your family's history." David's stomach twisted. He had hoped, prayed, that they could leave without being caught up in the past. but it seemed like the island wasn't done with them yet. Sophia's breath caught in her throat. The words the officer spoke were like a cold slap to her face. She had known there was more to the story, but this was beyond what she could have imagined. The officer continued, "We've reviewed old records, and there's a pattern, a history of family members linked to these disappearances. And it always ties back to one thing, an event that occurred right here decades ago." Sophia felt the ground beneath her tremble as her entire world began to tilt. The island, the family's secrets, the strange warning from the fisherman. It all started to piece together, but the picture it formed was far darker than she could have ever prepared for. David's voice broke the silence. "What are you talking about?" he asked, his voice strained, though a flicker of fear crossed his face. "We're talking about your brother, David," the officer said, and the word felt like a dagger to Sophia's chest. "And the blood pact you all made." Linda's hand shot out to grab David's arm, her face contorted in fear. "No, not here," she whispered urgently. "We can't do this now." But it was too late. Years ago, before Sophia was even born, David had come to this very island with his older brother, Ethan. The two had been close as children, but that bond had fractured after a terrible tragedy. Ethan had disappeared one night, and though the family searched for him, there was no trace. No sign of what had happened to him. No explanation. But the truth, buried deep within the family's twisted past, was about to resurface. David had tried to leave it all behind, hoping to bury the secret. But the island and the deal had never truly let him go. The officer's words confirmed it. Ethan made a deal with the island's guardians. The officer continued, watching their reactions closely. A pact sealed in blood. The family would receive wealth and prosperity in exchange for sacrifice. Each generation would give up one of their own. Ethan was the first. You knew it, David. And now the island is calling for its next price. Sophia's world shattered. She thought she had been a part of a normal family, one built on love, laughter, and support. But this was a nightmare. The realization that her parents were not just victims of a horrible twist of fate, but active participants in a curse that had haunted them for generations, left her feeling like a stranger in her own home. David's face went white as the officer's words hit him like a freight train. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Linda, on the other hand, stepped forward, her voice shaky. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. We made the promise to keep the family safe. We never thought it would come to this." Sophia turned to her mother, her voice trembling with disbelief. "You knew? You both knew what was going to happen to Jake." Linda's eyes welled with tears, and she nodded. "We didn't have a choice. Ethan's death, it started the chain, and now it's Jake's turn. But we thought maybe we could stop it. We didn't know he would be taken so soon." David looked at his wife, then at the officer, who was studying them both with a mix of suspicion and pity. "What does it mean?" David asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "The price of the deal. What does it want from us now?" The officer's eyes grew colder. "It's simple. One family member is chosen every generation. The price is taken in the form of death. It's always been like this. Ethan's life was the first. Now it's Jake, and the island will never stop until its demand is met." Sophia could feel her pulse quicken, her breath coming in shallow bursts. "How do you stop it?" she whispered, her voice full of desperation. "You can't," the officer said, his tone flat. "Once the pact is made, it's final. You can try to escape, but the island will always find a way to claim its due." Sophia's mind raced, but it wasn't just the curse that had her spinning. No, there was something more, something that wasn't adding up. She stared at her father, at David, and it hit her. The island, the deal, everything that had happened, it wasn't just fate. You knew, didn't you? Sophia's voice was harsh now, demanding an answer. This wasn't just some curse. It wasn't just bad luck. This was your plan. David hesitated, and in that brief moment, the truth sank in deeper than any of them were prepared for. You've been playing the island's game, Sophia said, her voice steady now, the anger fueling her words. You didn't just come back here for nothing. You came because you knew what it would take to end it, and you were willing to sacrifice Jake to do it. Her accusation hit like a storm, and for a moment there was silence. David's eyes darted to Linda, his hand shaking. You don't understand, Sophia, he said softly, his voice thick with regret. I didn't want this. I never wanted it. But we made a choice. A long time ago. Linda's tears streamed down her face, but there was no real sorrow in her eyes, only the haunted resignation of someone who had long since made peace with their choices. Sophia turned away, disgusted by the realization that her parents had been complicit in Jake's death, in the darkness that had overshadowed their lives for so long. The officer, still standing at the doorway, looked down at the floor. The island is finished with your family, Carter, he said quietly. But I'm not sure it's finished with you. Sophia didn't know if he meant her or the rest of the family. But one thing was clear. The island had marked them, and there was no escaping its grip. As the officer left, closing the door behind him with a slow, deliberate motion, Sophia felt something else, a presence. The weight of eyes upon her. And then, from the corner of her eye, she saw it. A shadow, a figure standing at the window, tall, dark, and unmistakably human. But when she turned, the figure was gone. A chill ran down her spine. And for the first time since arriving on the island, Sophia realized that the true terror wasn't just the secrets her family had kept from her. It was the island itself, and it wasn't done with them yet. The room was still, and the silence was suffocating. Sophia's eyes darted to the window, where the shadow had been moments ago. Her heart raced. The island, it seemed, was never done with them, no matter how hard they tried to escape. She moved toward the window, half expecting to see something lurking beyond the glass. But there was nothing except for the oppressive feeling that the island was watching, listening, waiting. Her parents stood frozen in place, their expressions a mix of guilt, fear, and resignation. Linda's eyes were swollen from tears, but there was no real shock left in her, no real surprise. It was as though everything they had lived through, everything they had done, had brought them to this inevitable moment. David, on the other hand, was on edge. His fingers twitched, his eyes flickering nervously toward the door, as if he feared that something or someone was about to step through it at any moment. We need to leave. Now, Sophia said, her voice trembling but firm. Her parents didn't answer immediately. The weight of the situation pressed down on them like a crushing force. But she didn't care. All she cared about was getting out, getting away from the suffocating presence of the island, from the deadly secret her family had kept for far too long. But as she grabbed her backpack and rushed toward the door, David stopped her. We can't leave, he said, his voice strained, desperate. Not now. Not yet. Sophia turned to him, her face a mix of anger and disbelief. What do you mean, we can't leave? Jake is dead. We're being hunted by a curse, by our own choices. What are you talking about? David stepped closer, his eyes pleading, though the guilt in them was palpable. The island, it won't let us leave. We can run, but it's already made its choice. It's already marked us. And if we try to leave, it will come for us. Sophia shook her head in disbelief. Then what are we supposed to do? Just stay here and wait to die? David hesitated. The words seemed to hang in the air between them, unspoken but understood. He knew what the island was capable of. He knew what it wanted. And more than anything, he knew the price that had to be paid. The only way to stop it, he said quietly, is to offer another sacrifice. Sophia's blood ran cold. Another sacrifice? She repeated, the words barely audible. You mean one of us? David nodded. The truth was out now, and there was no going back. The pact requires it. One life in every generation. The island feeds on our blood, on our guilt. If we don't give it what it wants, it will take us all. Sophia's mind reeled. The horror of what her father was saying sank in like a lead weight. Jake had been the price, and now one of them had to pay. But it was too late to undo the damage, too late to make up for the past. Linda spoke up, her voice cracking. We can't do this. We can't kill one of our own. There has to be another way. There isn't, David said, his voice final. We've been running from this for too long, but it always catches up to us. It always gets what it wants. The room fell silent as Sophia tried to absorb what her father was saying. The air was thick with fear and resignation, but there was also something else, something darker, a twisted, gut-wrenching truth that David had finally admitted. This was never about escape. It was about survival, and survival meant paying the price. Sophia's stomach churned. She turned away from her parents, her mind racing. How had this become their reality? How had the past, with all its dark secrets and horrifying choices, crept back into their lives like a shadow, slowly consuming everything in its path? She wanted to scream, to run. But where? The island had already claimed her brother, and now it wanted more. Suddenly, a sharp knock at the door broke her from her thoughts. Her heart skipped a beat. Sophia turned to her parents, who looked at each other with wide eyes. The sound of the knock had set them on edge, a fear they could no longer hide. David moved slowly toward the door, his hands shaking as he reached for the handle. He opened it just a crack, revealing the officer who had arrived earlier. But this time, his expression was different, grave, almost apologetic. "We can't stop it," the officer said softly, his voice filled with a strange, almost weary sorrow. "I'm sorry, but it's too late." Sophia felt the blood drain from her face. "What do you mean, too late?" she asked, barely able to get the words out. The officer sighed, his gaze flickering between the family members. "The island has already chosen. You can't change the outcome. It will come for one of you, no matter what." David stepped back, his face pale. "Then what do we do? How do we survive this?" The officer's face twisted with a dark, bitter smile. "There's only one way to survive, Carter. You give the island what it wants." Sophia felt her heart stop. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "No, not again." The officer's eyes darkened, his expression almost pitying. "It's already done. The island will have its due, whether you want it or not. But if you sacrifice one of your own, you might live." David turned to Linda, his voice breaking. "We have no choice, Linda. This is the only way." Sophia couldn't breathe. The weight of what her father was saying crushed her. This was it, the final choice, the final price. And it was her family's fate to pay. But as she looked at her parents, the realization hit her hard. No matter who they chose, the island had already won. It had taken Jake, and now it wanted more. The days that followed were a blur. The air was thick with tension. Sophia couldn't look at her parents the same way anymore. She couldn't look at them and not see the guilt in their eyes, the twisted knowledge of what had to happen next. They all knew what was coming. Late one night, as the family sat in their small hotel room, the island's presence seemed to creep into every corner. The walls felt closer, the air thicker. It was as if the island itself had begun to close in on them, its grip tightening around their throats. David stood up, his hands trembling. "It's time," he said quietly, as though this moment had been predestined. He walked towards Sophia, his face twisted with guilt and fear. "Dad," Sophia whispered, shaking her head in disbelief. "No, you can't. I won't let you." But David's eyes were filled with a strange resolve. "I'm sorry, Sophia," he whispered, "but it's the only way." Sophia could feel her heart pounding her chest as she backed away. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in on her. And then, without warning, the door slammed open. The island had come to claim its due. The deadly secrets of a family vacation has come to a close. The island's curse has claimed another victim, and the Carters will never be the same again. What do you think? Was there any way to escape? Comment below, and don't forget to follow for more shocking true crime stories.